General Marcus Bennett was a man defined by responsibility, integrity, and decades of service. For over 30 years, he had served in the American Army, participating in missions across the globe. Known for his firm leadership and sense of justice, he believed deeply that discipline and character were a man's greatest assets. Marcus had experienced real power, not the kind built on fear or control, but the kind grounded in honor and duty. One afternoon, after an intense national security meeting in Washington, D.C., Marcus stopped at a supermarket to get a coffee. Dressed in casual clothes, a gray sweatshirt and jeans, he blended in, looking nothing like the decorated officer he truly was. In his black luxury sedan, parked near the entrance, his military cap and metal-laden jacket lay on the passenger seat, silent reminders of his lifelong dedication to his country. But none of that would matter in the moments to come. As Officer Bradley slowly patrolled past the supermarket, his attention was drawn to what he perceived as a suspicious scene: a black man exiting the store, coffee in hand, and getting into a luxury car. Without any actual reason, no report, no complaint, no evidence, he acted purely on instinct, driven by his own bias. He stopped his car, stepped out, and called out aggressively, "Hey, you!" Marcus, startled, looked around. There was no one else nearby. "Yes, is there a problem, officer?" he asked, keeping his hands visible and calm. It was a tone he had heard before. Growing up, he had witnessed family and friends treated as suspects simply for existing. But he never thought it would happen to him, not after everything he had sacrificed. The officer barked, "Don't ask questions. Just obey." Marcus remained composed, but the look in Bradley's eyes was sharp and mistrusting. When asked for his car documents, Marcus slowly reached for his wallet, only for Bradley to shout, "Slow down," and draw his gun. Marcus froze, his heart racing not from fear, but from outrage. He produced his documents and his military badge, stating, "I am a general of the American Army." Bradley, unconvinced, sneered. "You mean you're a general? That's a new one. You know how many guys carry fake IDs?" Marcus calmly invited him to verify the license plate and identity, but Bradley had already made up his mind. Without checking a thing, he ordered Marcus out of the car and placed him under arrest. Cold metal cuffs clamped around his wrists as he was pulled toward the police vehicle. Years of service, sacrifice, and dedication meant nothing to Bradley. To him, Marcus was just a suspect. As they drove away, bystanders watched, some shocked, others silent. One young man tried to speak up, saying Marcus had done nothing wrong, only to be silenced by Bradley. Marcus, stoic and trained in restraint, didn't resist. He refused to give Bradley any excuse for further aggression. At the police station, Marcus was fingerprinted and placed in a holding cell without being asked a single question. As he sat, officers began to notice something odd. Many of them looked uneasy. A sergeant approached Bradley and asked what the man had done. "Suspicious behavior," Bradley replied smugly. But the sergeant, reading the name Marcus Bennett on the paperwork, recognized it immediately. "Did you check his identity?" the sergeant asked. Bradley dismissed the question. "You know how they lie," he said, motioning vaguely toward Marcus. But the sergeant acted quickly, radioing the captain. "Sir, we have a problem," he said, tension creeping into his voice. When the captain confirmed who Marcus was, the mood shifted drastically. The Chief of Staff of the U.S. Army, General Christopher Reynolds, was personally on his way to the station. Panic began to swell in Bradley's chest, but he tried to mask it with false confidence. "I was doing my job," he mumbled. The sergeant ignored him and ordered Marcus' immediate release. When Marcus stepped out of the cell, officers looked away in shame. He sat silently, composed, but clearly calculating. Then the station doors opened. 3 men in suits entered, followed by a tall man in uniform, General Reynolds himself. His expression was stern as he scanned the room. "Where is he?" he asked. Upon seeing Marcus, he walked over and shook his hand. "Marcus, my friend, are you all right?" Marcus replied, "I am now." Reynolds then turned to the officers and demanded an explanation. Bradley attempted to justify himself, claiming Marcus had acted suspiciously and disobeyed orders. Reynolds cut him off. "Did you check his papers?" Bradley admitted he hadn't. Reynolds, arms crossed, responded with incredulous anger, "You arrested a U.S. Army general without even checking his ID?" He stepped closer to Bradley, his voice rising with indignation. "You disrespected one of this country's greatest military leaders, a man who devoted his life to protecting this nation. You abused your power. You humiliated a war hero simply because of your prejudice." Then came the final blow. "Tell me, officer, if this man had been white and wearing a tie, would you have done the same?" Bradley could not answer. His face flushed with shame, and he avoided Reynolds' gaze. "Your career ends here," Reynolds declared. The ground seemed to fall out from beneath Bradley's feet. "You are dismissed. An investigation will follow. If it were up to me, you'd never wear that badge again." As two officers moved to escort Bradley away, he muttered in disbelief, "This isn't possible." And yet, it was. Yet, that was exactly what was happening, and Marcus knew he wouldn't need to lift a finger. He watched silently, composed. There was no need for him to raise his voice or demand justice. Karma had already done what needed to be done. Now, Officer Bradley was learning a hard truth: real power doesn't lie in a badge or uniform, but in integrity, respect, and character. The atmosphere inside the police station had completely shifted. A heavy silence lingered, louder than the authority Bradley had wielded just hours before. Everyone could feel it, the weight of truth, the sting of shame. Bradley, now an ex-officer, was quietly escorted out. He didn't protest or argue. The pride he once wore like armor had vanished, leaving only defeat. Marcus took a deep breath. He didn't rejoice in Bradley's downfall. It wasn't revenge he sought, it was awareness. He wanted Bradley, and anyone else watching, to understand what had just happened, that judging someone based on skin color, attire, or the car they drive carries consequences. General Reynolds placed a reassuring hand on Marcus's shoulder. "Let's get out of here, Marcus. You don't need to stay here a second longer." Around them, the remaining officers kept their eyes lowered, some in shame, others in fear of the consequences that might soon follow. Phones continued ringing. The incident had already made its way onto social media. Outside, a crowd had gathered, people who had witnessed the injustice, recorded it, and shared it. As Marcus stepped outside, a respectful silence fell over the crowd. Then a voice called out, "I'm sorry, sir. This should never have happened." Marcus looked at the man, offering a calm, dignified nod. He held no grudge. He believed a lesson had been learned that day. He got into the car with General Reynolds. The two men sat quietly as the city passed by outside the window, its people, its movement, its contradictions. Reynolds finally broke the silence, asking, "So, what now?" Marcus looked out, thoughtful but firm. "Now, we keep fighting," he said with a faint smile.